Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Destiny 2 video. I know this video is a couple days late coming out, but today I am going to be going over how to do the first Grandmaster Nightfall for Season of the Splicer, the Glassway. I'll be going over the weapons, mods, and overall team composition for how my fire team and I were able to beat this strike, as well as some other things that I think could be useful for teams looking to tackle this very difficult Nightfall. Before we begin, if you like this video, remember that a like and a subscribe are always greatly appreciated, and they do a lot to help out the channel. And if you ever want to see me live streaming, my Twitch channel, as always, is going to be linked in the description down below. Before we begin, I'm going to do a quick refresher for players if this happens to be your first Grandmaster or your first one in a while. It'll be a short explanation, and if you're already familiar with these Nightfalls and you just want the guide for this strike specifically, jump to the timestamp on your screen. Okay. So as a quick introduction, Grandmaster Nightfalls basically take your normal Nightfall strikes and they turn the difficulty all the way up to 11. You'll have the same basic modifiers as Master Nightfalls, but with the added difficulty of the contest modifier, making you stuck at 25 levels below the strikes recommended, and the additional Grandmaster modifier, which adds the difficulty of limited revives, similar to the Master and Legend Lost sectors. You will only get 4 revives to start with, and just like the Master and Legend Lost sectors, additional revives can be earned by killing champions. That's basically it for what changes between a Grandmaster and a Master Nightfall, and after that, the only differences will be for specific strikes. For Glassway specifically, you're going to have the modifier called Bellman's Algorithm, which increases all incoming void and aerial damage. This impacted our mods, as you can't go wrong with using the Void Resist mod on your chest piece. The Arc Resist mod is not bad either, since the Fallen for most of the strike will be primarily using Arc, and the Sniper Vandals are very, very dangerous, usually able to one-shot you despite the fact that Arc damage is not actually increased. You can't go wrong with a Sniper Resist mod either for the same reason, since that will be really useful for the lead up to the boss. Or you could use a Concussive Dampener or Melee Resist for the final boss fight. For our first clear, we ran a Shadebinder Warlock using Aeon Soul, and we made sure that this guy is also using the Bleak Watcher aspect, because that is really going to be your best friend in this strike. And our 2 other players were both using Ursa Furiosa and Middle Tree Sentinel Titan. For our second clear, we had the same Shadebinder, but we used 1 Ursa instead of 2, and swapped the second Shield Titan out for a Hunter Tether, making use of the chest piece Omnioculus. For weapons, we actually used Ariana's Vow both times, and I think that is, at least for my group, the best way we could set up for this strike, since the Ariana's Vow can be the only anti-barrier without really running into any struggles against barrier champions. Since there aren't that many barrier champs in the sections leading up to the boss fight, and the servitors that you do run into in the lead up to the boss fight aren't really dangerous enough to warrant using more than 1 anti-barrier weapon. What are dangerous, however, are both the Overload Captains in the main body of the strike and the Overload Minotaurs in the final encounter. For this reason, we had literally every member of our fire team using an Overload Hand Cannon, with the Ariana's guy having his Overload Hand Cannon as his primary, and the other 2 using grenade launchers in tandem with an Overload Hand Cannon. The other loadout that I would like to mention that we have had some success with is 3 players using Wither Horde, then having 1 player using an anti-barrier scout rifle in their energy slot, and the other 2 players using overload hand cannons in their energy slot, and then all 3 players having rocket launchers for very high burst damage. Anarchy isn't bad either, but the difference is, for this strike, I like Wither Horde more because of the ammo economy, the auto-loading holster, and the fact that it allows you to get a rocket launcher to quickly burst down a champion, while also being just as capable of using Breach and Clear as Anarchy is. Another really useful trick would be to have only 2 players opt for Wither Horde, and then you could have your other player use a special Blinding Grenades launcher, since that works on the Little Hydra in the final area, as well as the Wyverns in the final area, as well as just being good for controlling enemies throughout the strike, and then he could use Anarchy in his heavy slot if he'd like, in order to make up for the loss of Wither Horde. On a side note, at the time that I am recording this video, if you need a good Blinding Grenades launcher, go buy Banshee 44's Truth Teller roll this week. It has blinding, auto-loading, and disruption break, and this strike is a perfect place to use it. As far as elements, make sure you have Solar and Arc both covered, as those are the 2 types of shields you are going to run into throughout the strike, although you will not see too many of them. I believe there are only a couple of heavy shanks that have solar shields, and there are only a few red bar harpies in the final encounter that have arc shields. On top of all that, for your loadout, for the overload hand cannons, we used Posterity, we looked at Fatebringer, and we looked at the Adept Palindrome. I found that I liked all of them. My favorite was definitely Posterity from the Deepstone Crypt, however, just because of how many bullets it can get, and it covers your arc shields for the final encounter. The other thing that I must point out here is Breach and Clear. This mod goes on your class item, and if you haven't heard about it yet, I'm not sure how. It is just a free 30% damage buff, and it reloads all your other weapons when you damage a boss or a champion. It was our best friend. It helped us to one-shot the champions, especially in the final encounter, where killing them quickly is a must. Tag it with Witherhoard, get that Breach and Clear, and then burst it down with a rocket. As far as our build mods, we ran Charge with Light builds pretty much exclusively here, using, like I previously mentioned, Breach and Clear. To cover ourselves for being under-leveled, we used Protective Light as our main defensive mod, where when you're charged with light and take critical damage, you will gain a very, very hefty damage resistance buff. And whoever's using finishers, in our case our Shadebinder Warlock, could use Reactive Pulse with another Arc mod to get free Bulwark finishers for the heavy overshield during your finisher to make making ammo even safer. To actually gain charges, we used Taking Charge, since the Ursa Furiosa Titan will be able to drop a ton of orbs, and you won't really ever struggle to find orbs of light. However, pretty much any mod that will get you charged with light will work. However, I do not recommend using something like High Energy Fire, which, while the damage buff is very nice, will make your Protective Light harder to keep active. I really just like Protective Light for Grandmasters. I'd rather have longer runs that are very safe than have necessarily quick runs that are a lot harder in strikes like the Glassway that are so difficult. Now, for a quick little room-by-room breakdown for this strike, we really just took our time, going from room to room and killing everything. The first champion spawns with some invisible marauders, and after him there's a couple sniper vandals, so watch out for these guys. They're not too dangerous. If you happen to lose a couple revives, I would actually say to just reset here, since you only lose about a minute and a half of progress, not very much time wasted. Once you get past the first force field, you can hide behind the rock at the bottom of the hill in this first room, take down the snipers and the overload captain before trying to kill anything else. Make sure you do not move too far forward, since if you do, you will spawn more enemies and a barrier servitor that can make both the overload captain and or the mini boss in this area immune. Watch out for the mini boss's stasis attack. The crystal shatters can instantly kill you, and the freeze can also get you and your teammates killed with the shatter damage. However, this boss is relatively easy to beat. Kill it, spawn the barrier champion, kill that, and then move on. The next mini boss will be a sniper that has Duskfield grenades, so I usually try to kill the little snipers here first, try and kill the overload captain. Again, don't move up too far forward or you will force spawn the barrier servitor, and that can cause a lot of headaches. And once the overload captain and the little snipers are dead, you can kill the boss or spawn the barrier servitor and kill that. Try and stay close to cover here. This boss can one-shot you unless you have very high resilience. And if you get hit by a Duskfield grenade while you are behind cover, just hold still. You probably won't get frozen due to some of these stasis nerfs, and if you do happen to get frozen, you're likely safe behind cover. Like I just mentioned, the stasis nerfs, those nerfs actually do affect both of these mini bosses, grenades, and stasis effects against you as the player. Therefore, this strike is actually a little easier than it was in Season of the Hunt, at least in these two rooms, because the stasis effects of these bosses no longer are a death sentence like they used to be. Once you kill the boss and everything else in this room, move on up and keep going. You don't have to fight any more stasis for the rest of this strike. And once you get to the part where you have to cross the gap, kill the two overload captains and watch out for snipers again. They will spawn in a couple waves. The ones at the end can be particularly dangerous. Once you get to the area with the Radiolarian Lake, spawn some guys by standing on the plate, but move back so you don't get smacked by the snipers and the shanks. Move back to cover, clear out the enemies, and move up. You could try and use Ursas to take down the snipers easily. It makes for really safe peeking, but you might want to hug your Ursa Titan, because if you peek the snipers on the left, there's a good chance the snipers on the right may have an angle on you. Once you've drained the whole lake, move up and wipe out everything else, kill the enemies, and watch for the new round of snipers that will be spawning up top. Once you've crossed the drained lake, you can move into the final area. Once you're here, kill the dregs and the Overload Captain and run into the left side room. Hide in here for pretty much the whole fight. At the beginning, you'll have both Hydra bosses and Overload champions. Kill the Overloads ASAP. A good technique here for when the Overloads spawn is actually to go to the far left and kill one right as it comes out of the portal. But if you don't, try and bait them in through the middle or the left or the right. Any of them work, but make sure you know where they're going to come from. Don't hit the Hydra yet, but you can just blind it with a grenade launcher. The biggest thing is going to be to kill the Overloads and then push the Hydra out. Because if you push the Hydra's health bar down, before killing the Overload Minotaurs, you will actually spawn 2 more, and then you'll have 4 Minotaurs to deal with instead of 2. 2 is already enough pain to try and deal with. Once you've dealt with the second wave of Overload Minotaurs and pushed the little Hydra to teleport out of the room, push the boss to teleport out of the room. Then the little Hydra will return, and with it, 2 Wyverns. Number one thing here is going to be go to far left and kill the first Wyvern on spawn. Watch out for the second one, as it will usually be arriving into the room you're hiding in about the same time you return. You can use either blinding grenades or stasis, or even a hunter tether if you have it, to stun these Wyverns. And ignore the prompts that champions have spawned, since they will be barrier hobgoblins that will just stay outside of the room you're hiding in. Once you've killed the 2 Wyverns, spawn 2 more by pushing the Hydra back out, and then kill this next set of 2 Wyverns. After that, get ready and try and take your time taking down some of the barrier hobgoblins that have spawned. Once you've killed all 4, the big boss will return once again with 2 Overload Minotaurs spawning. Kill the first one on the left, wait for the second one to come in. Once it's dead, you can use Wither Horde or Anarchy, whatever you have, to push the big Hydra out of the room. And once you've done that, it'll spawn 2 more Overload Minotaurs, kill them. Once the boss is teleported out completely, both Hydras will return, along with 2 Wyverns. Kill the first 2 Wyverns right away, just like you did the last time. Kill the little Hydra, which will then spawn 2 more Wyverns, kill these, and then you can actually kill the big Hydra right after that. According to a lot of things I've seen, I have not actually tested this myself, but you can skip the last 4 champions that spawn during the boss fight and still get platinum, apparently. And if you don't care about the loot for this week's Nightfall and you only care about the achievement for the Gilded Conqueror seal, you don't even need platinum rewards at all. So you don't necessarily need to worry about the other 4 barrier hobgoblins. In my runs, we actually killed them anyway, just because why not? And yeah, if you do that, you will have beat the Glassway on Grandmaster, and you will have potentially earned the Adept Plug 1 Fusion Rifle. If you ask me, I don't really think that this strike is worth it for that piece of loot, because this strike is pretty long and pretty difficult compared to other Grandmasters for a Fusion Rifle, which is pretty much a novelty at best, especially this one specifically, although I have heard that it can be good for the Fusion enjoyers in PvP. However, that's all I have for this video, and if you liked it, if you found it helpful, please leave a thumbs up and a subscribe. Like I mentioned, they help out the channel a lot, and if you ever want to catch me live streaming, I play Destiny 2 as well as a lot of other games over on my Twitch, which is going to be linked again down below. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.